Hello, vinyl community. This is Mike with TCat's Deep Vinyl Tracks. I'm going to try out a new thing and see how it goes. And probably do this every once in a while, run a series or whatever. So this is the beginning of it. What I'm going to do is do like a random poll, and then do like kind of a review and some information about the record and how it came to be and all that kind of stuff. So basically featuring certain albums and telling you a little bit about them, how they came to be, maybe, do, if I'm allowed, that is, I'll be able to do a few tracks off of the album, a few needle drops. So what I do is go into Discogs. There's a random button in there. Push the random button and select it, and that's how I decide which album I'm going to review. So I already did this for this one. In the future, I'll probably record doing it or have some footage of it. This time around, I just went ahead and did it. And before I started really putting stuff together, just to be curious. And I can guarantee you I didn't pick this one out just out of my own preference or out of my own head, because it's not really an album that I love, and it's not one that I really hate either. So anyway, I pushed the random button, and the first one to come up was this album. This is Emerson, Lake and Powell. So this is the first album that Keith Emerson and Greg Lake put together. They were trying to get the original lineup with Carl Palmer as the drummer, but he was under contract with Asia and couldn't get away to do that. So they had to look for another drummer. And they thought of a few, and Cozy Powell just happened to be one of Keith Emerson's friends. They said, well, let's try him out. Now, they claim, both Keith Emerson and Greg Lake claim that that just because his last name started with a P, that was just all coincidence, because he was Keith Emerson's friend. So that's why they decided to pick him, and it just so happened his last name is Powell, so the ELP part of everything still worked. That was quite convenient, I suppose. Partway through the recording of this album, apparently they were recording in a barn that was owned by Keith Emerson. A tractor got loose somehow and smashed into the barn, and they ended up having to re-record about half of the album. It's not a bad album. It's a lot more commercial sounding than the Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums, but if you are familiar with Emerson, Lake and Palmer, their last few albums were kind of heading in that general direction anyway. There was a change of sound. The album they released last before they split up was Love Beach. They're just trying their hand at pop music, more or less. In my opinion, Greg Lake just didn't have the vocals for pop, but he did have because his vocals are very flamboyant. He's almost like a stage singer, stage actor / singer, that would be good in plays and stuff like that. But his vocals did work quite well for Emerson, Lake and Palmer's material. Very flamboyant, sometimes over the top. It worked really well for that. When you just make the transition to more of a pop rock sound, more a commercial sound, I don't think it carries over quite as well. It's not bad. It's a commercial album for the most part. They try to bring back some of the old sound of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, on side 1 you got 3 tracks. On side 2 there are 5. The album was released in 1986, and the first track on here is the longest. It's called The Score. 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, most of the songs on here were credited to both Keith Emerson and Greg Lake. So the first song starts out with a lot of instrumental, trying to bring back that old Emerson, Lake and Palmer feel. The one main difference I can tell is there seems to be less of a spontaneous sound to it. It sounds more like everything is kind of structured, kind of written down, like this is how we're going to play it. It's got a very regal sound, is what most of the songs on this particular album has, and that's one of its drawbacks, is there's not a whole lot of variation. So the score starts out, probably the first half of it's instrumental before Greg Lake's vocals kick in. First impressions, again, it has that Emerson, Lake and Palmer sound, but it sounds more structured. And Cozy Powell's drums sound pretty good on here, but to me, it's a little out of place. You got this guy that played for hard rock bands like Whitesnake, and it's like coming into something like this, which is more poppy. It's almost like he didn't always know how to handle it. He does a great job, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it mixes that well or fits in as well as what Carl Palmer's drums did in their particular style. So the score, like I said, is a long instrumental beginning. The original title of it was What's Your Game? It's a return to, well, it refers back to the song Carn Evil Number 9 with the lyrics, the show that never ends. They make reference to that in there. Again, referring back to their old days. It's more of a progressive sound than it is a popular sound. Again, harkening back to their earlier days. More of that flamboyant sound, so it almost fits on there. Only problem is I can't get over the fact that it just sounds structured. It seems like to me there's too little substance in there, and too much flair going on for the amount of substance there is. It seems like the 9 minutes is a bit unnecessary with all that long introduction. And I guess it does kind of help sway listeners to the fact that, hey, maybe this is going to be an album like their old stuff. Well, track number 2, which is called Learning to Fly. Again, Keith Emerson and Greg Lake are credited for writing this one. This song is 3 minutes and 52 seconds, more of a radio-friendly sound, radio-friendly timing. Lyrics deal with city life and trying to escape it. There's nothing special about it. Sounds a bit dated to me. And there's a boring synthesizer solo in the middle of it all. Now, the ending kind of fades into an orchestral ending, which is pretty much unnecessary other than to extend the time, maybe another 45 seconds. And it transitions it into the last track on side 1, which is called The Miracle. Again, Keith Emerson, Greg Lake are the ones credited for that one. And that one is 7 minutes and 2 seconds. So you got 2 songs on side 1 that are over 5 minutes long. The Miracle has got the cliche sounding lyrics to it. There's probably a lot more words than what I prefer in an Emerson, Lake and Palmer song, kind of like Pirates was. This one has a theme to do with fantasy, though. Of course, they've got all the keywords in there, dragons, castles, all that stuff. And I don't know, they're copying their old prog formula, but trying to make it more of a commercial sound. And I think the song just kind of falls flat. The vocals get a little too meaningless as far as the lyrics go. There's nothing innovative about this, and nothing really that interesting about it. There's even a choir at the end. I think it's a processed choir. I think it's all done by the synthesizer. That can't even save this particular track. So we get to side 2. Now you've got a bunch of short songs coming up. 5 tracks on this side. The first one is the hit single that came off of this particular album called Touch and Go. Of course, you got Keith Emerson and Greg Lake with the credits, but you also have Ralph Vaughan Williams as in among the credits too. The reason for this is the theme that's played by the synthesizer and the whole main idea of the melody is based on an old folk song called Lovely Joan. It's a traditional English song. It was compiled into a bunch of traditional English songs by this Ralph Vaughan Williams, though nobody really knows who the real author of the song is. It got up to number 60 on the US charts, so it never cracked the top 40. But it does have a very attention-grabbing intro, and I could see where it would get your attention almost right away if it came on the radio. Very catchy song, probably the catchiest of all the songs on the album, so it stands out in that way. But you know, among all the hit radio songs that are out there, I can see where it kind of get lost in all the popular music from the 80s. There were just so many other songs out there that were better, and this one just doesn't stand out enough. Kind of loses steam in the quieter passages, and that's also a fault, I think. The lyrics deal with living a fake life and living outside of your means. Track number 5 is a song called Love Blind, attributed to Keith Emerson and Greg Lake at 3 minutes and 8 seconds. It starts out as kind of a ballad, has a silly, schmaltzy sound to it, and the lyrics, you know, are pretty much what you would expect out of Greg Lake trying to popularize the sound. The lyrics deal with the dangers of falling into a love that isn't true, and it's honestly quite a terrible pop song. Nothing much happens in it. So yeah, we're into a lot of filler at this point. Track number 6 is Step Aside, again by Keith Emerson and Greg Lake at 3 minutes and 48 seconds. This one does stand out from some of the more poppy songs in that it's more on the jazzy side, and that's really a welcome change in, you know, the music that's starting to sound a bit alike. It's a jazzy break from similar sounding songs that came before, and there's a nice piano-led instrumental in the middle, very jazzy sounding, very nice sounding. Greg Lake's vocals are great for this one. Everything is perfect. So amongst all these 3.5 starred songs, this was actually a 5-star song. So it's nice to have that in there. And if they'd had a little more variety to the album, it probably would have been a lot better.
Try and turn my face away, but that's okay. 'Cause one day you may find that it will ricochet. Anyway, they say that every dog will have his day.
Track number 7 was the second single released from the album, called Lay Down Your Guns. Again, Keith Emerson and Greg Lake, but Steve Gould also gets writing credits on this. For what reason, I don't know. 4 minutes and 24 seconds. This, again, is kind of a ballad all the way through. The single itself never charted. And basically the lyrics deal with two people against the world. You know, what you would expect out of a poppy ballad from Emerson, Lake and Powell, Palmer, whatever. Last of all, on the regular album, track number 8 is Mars, Bringer of War. This has songwriting credits from Keith Emerson, Greg Lake, and Cozy Powell, so all three of them get credit. But the main theme, the main melody, the main idea behind it all is from Holst, from his The Planets Suite. So a classical song. This is Keith Emerson rearranging the song to make it into, you know, kind of a rock song, kind of like he did in the past with Man, Fanfare for the Common Man. That was one that he adapted. There were a couple of others that he adapted, and he did some original stuff, Keith Emerson did. This one is another 5-star song. This one sounds more like the old Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Just a great rendition of Mars, the Bringer of War, which is a great classical song anyway, and they adapt it very well. It's the only instrumental on the entire album. Again, almost 8 minutes long. This would have easily fit on any of the earlier Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums, no problem, and it would have sounded good. This is the best track on the album. Very epic, and like I said, more like the old Emerson, Lake and Palmer adaptations. So some of the US CDs and the Japanese edition of the CDs had 2 bonus tracks on them that are on the regular album. I don't have a copy of the CD, but so track number 8, first bonus track, was their rendition, again instrumental, of The Locomotion, the popular song written by Jerry Gaffin and Carole King at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Kind of a hokey sounding thing. It's kind of interesting that Keith Emerson at first didn't want the Mars adaptation put on the album because he was thinking it sounded too much like Hooked on Classics and he didn't want to get that reputation. Whatever. I'm glad they put that one on there and took off The Locomotion, because that one's quite cheesy, in my opinion. The second bonus track, track number 9, is called Vacant Possession, and it runs for 4 minutes and 42 seconds. Again, it's just another commercial sounding Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Powell kind of song. Nothing special, nothing spectacular. Overall, I think it all adds up to about a 3-star rating. I don't like the poppier songs on here. I think the album's just a little bit weak, but the only saving grace that it has is Mars, the Bringer of War, and a couple of hints back to the old Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and the song Step Aside, which was the one that was more of a jazzy sound. Would I recommend you picking it up? Well, that's up to you. I mean, some people are Emerson, Lake and Palmer fans, and are completists, and that they would add this to their collection. And basically that's what I did. Just added it to the collection because it was one of their albums. It's on Polydor, and what I recommend buying it, well, if you can find it for $5 or less, then definitely pick it up. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with it. I wouldn't go out there looking for it. It just doesn't stand out that much, and you know, I wouldn't waste a lot of time trying to find it. I got lucky, found it out there, picked it up, and you know, I play it every once in a great while, but usually when I'm going through all my Emerson, Lake and Palmer type or connected albums. So there it is, Emerson, Lake and Powell, and hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, I'll be planning on doing more of these. I thought I could do this in 5 minutes, and here it's 20 minutes. So thank you for hanging in there, and thank you for watching. Give me any suggestions down at the bottom, what you would like to see, what kind of information you'd like to see on these kind of videos. And we'll see you sometime soon, probably on the next one. Thank you for watching.